It always comes to this. More nice shit. Hello there guys, back again to do another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off this top part that Rick and I got into, the second/third pass of the massive color on black Cthulhu horror kind of bioorganic sleeve. People have been like, I've had a few people ask me like what the style of this work is, and if I had to give it a name, it would be like bio horror. There's only really a few, well, there's more than a few, but there's only a handful of artists that really do the style at a high level, and Rick and I are both inspired by and interested in that style of work, so that was kind of always going to be the direction of that sleeve, even back when it was just theoretical and we were just kind of talking about it. It was always like, yeah, we're doing it like bio horror, so it's kind of like, obviously like bioorganic or biomech, but more of a horror vibe. So, and then also Cthulhu went great with my ongoing torso work, and obviously you know, I've always enjoyed Cthulhu mythology and H.P. Lovecraft, and most of my torso work was actually inspired by a video game called Bloodborne. For this suit anyway. The first suit was more inspired by a couple of different Final Fantasy creatures, but yeah, just a little tidbit on that, because people are always wondering what's inspired my work or kind of what the theme is. While I've got the top off, before I get into other topics, I'll show off how the blue and pink highlights are doing. So they're all still in there, looking great. You know, I've got more work to do here still, believe it or not. When I get the right sleeve sorted out with Terry, I want to come back through here, do this spot again. That'll be the fourth time. And I want to put black, like low lights, I guess they're not highlights, in places as well. So that's a little hard to explain, but it will be a continuation of what's already happened with the light blue and pink highlights that are there. So that is a project that I'll be getting to this year. Ultimately this year, I do plan on getting to my back piece. I talked to Terry about doing it. The artist that I had in mind to do it is actually leaving the shop instead of Terry. I alluded to this in a prior video, but tattoo artists are nomadic in nature, we'll say, to put it nicely. People come and go, and important for me is to know that, as I've already expressed, that someone will do this work regardless of who it is. It will end up, you know, different, but more or less the same in essence. Whichever artist you have working on a project is always going to add their own style to it, but I don't get into this kind of like hero worship thing that we do sometimes, where it's like, he has magic in his fingers, it can only be done by him. No, largely, there's almost always someone in your area that's talented enough to do what you want. It's just about figuring out who it is and if they're willing to do it. And that becomes the biggest problem for a lot of people. I get that so often now with the work that I'm doing, where people are like, yeah, but I talked to my artist and he said, and it's like, yeah, there's still, even though the industry is being pulled along kicking and screaming by projects like what I'm doing and some others, there are still a lot of people that are comfortable with their heads in the sand, and I think that that's probably never going to change. Like, there's probably always going to be those guys out there, and it's just about finding people who are willing to learn and listen to common sense and proven methods, and you know, look with their eyes and get their heads out of their asses. And I think the industry would be in a much better place if more people were willing to accept, you know, new information on topics that they've long since made their minds up about. Because, as a good segue, we are doing things that, first off, on top of things that shouldn't have been doable. This shouldn't have been doable. This is healed, and so is this. This is fresh, and so is this. None of these things should have been doable, let alone, doing colors over top of white and black on black. So you could effectively, like, if you were looking to title what I'm working on now, this is not the third suit. So many people will be like, oh, he's got 3 layers. It's like, dude, I've got 3-4 layers just in this version of this suit. These will be passed again. This pedal here, for whatever reason, was really, really fighting it. It wasn't going in well. You would assume that would be the case with all of my work. Everything on me would be that way, but most of my work is pretty easy to saturate still. Oddly enough, prior to what you would think, this hand rose was the brightest. It went in the easiest. The colors all were just touch saturated. There was almost no working that in. Like, if I had to pick the one that I thought would have saturated the worst, it would have been the hand. But for whatever reason, it was the bicep. I mean, my bicep's got some scarring in places, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as the scar tissue that's in my right hand from the infection that I had. So it just goes to show you that we don't always know what the fuck is what. Like, even me doing this work, more or less every day, 2 days a week at the very least. So I'm always in some stage of healing something and observing results. There's no one who's observed more results of, cover up or work over black than I have as a person living with it. And I'm still being surprised by things. So this idea that there's nothing new to learn in the industry that some old boys have is cancerous, and it will only cost them in the long run. Because if everyone was willing to embrace these things and see these realities in plain daylight, then the whole industry would become better because there'd just be more tools at our disposal. You wouldn't be like, oh, I would love to do it, but you have that, so I can't. Now it's like when we're talking about cover-ups here at the shop, it's like there's no impossible. There's no like, oh, I can't. It's like, it's always like, are you patient enough? Because that's what it boils down to. It's like, we can do this for you, but are you patient enough to do it? Because I'm never going to sell anyone snake oil. But, people have been buying laser for fucking, decades now, and that's not proven even as effective as what we're doing. Like, laser it's never even a guarantee. Like, there's no guarantee that when you start lasering something, it will ever go. You don't even know what it's going to be like until you get the first session or two in, and people still go for that. So when I'm having clear as day results that are staying until I change them, it should be an easier sell, you would think. But it's the tattooers holding it back for the most part. The tattooers and the people they've led astray into thinking that this isn't doable. There's a lot of this thing where, like, my tattooer said so it's gospel. It's like, yeah, your tattooer doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, so it's not gospel. But anyway, I like this a lot more already than I did with the black and gray rose, and I think it's going to follow when I do my neck. It just looks tonally consistent with everything else that's going on. And then knowing how they heal, there's quite a bit of black still kind of stripping through there, and I don't even know if that's a bad thing. It kind of gives it more of a 3D look. I actually like them healed better than fresh. Honest to God, do. I think that you have to go in bolder and brighter than you want it to be healed. So, like, for example, if we had started at this level, we wouldn't have this level when we're healed. So you have to go in, like, bright and bold. You can't go in muted, or else there won't be much there. But when you do that, it tones down to this really nice kind of stained look, where it's not to say that it isn't really colorful, because it is, but it's not as vibrant as this is. Now, this rose I'm actually expecting to maybe be more vibrant than this one, but hands are a little bit weird. Just because it went in well doesn't mean that it's going to be super, super vibrant when it's healed. Like, that's still anyone's guess. Especially my hands are super dry, and they tend to hang on to to ink, like to get into the little crevices in your hands and the dry spots that you don't even know are there. And so it's never really a proven science. And I've seen some shit this week that has really made me like shake my head, where I just seen a hand tattoo done this week by an artist, and it's the most reckless thing I've ever seen. I'm not going to name names. If you've seen it, you'll maybe know what I'm talking about. But I seen today, or yesterday rather, a full blackout hand that was done in a session, and they did a white ink design over top of the hand in the same session. That's a guaranteed scar. That's guaranteed scar tissue. I've only had something like that happen on me one time. I had an artist blacking out a tattoo of mine. I'm not going to get into who it was. And they blacked out part of it that wasn't supposed to be blacked out at that time. I was keeping. And he went into it and dug it back out with white ink. He recreated the details and the structure of the piece with white ink, and it looked like the piece. It was there again. It was like, oh, okay, well, but that's all scar tissue now. Like, I've got that scar to this day. It's in here. And it's still risen. Like, that's going to be a scar forever. So is that entire tattoo that I just mentioned. You cannot do that. White ink, to begin with, is one of the worst things to saturate. It's super thick and hard to put in. It's one of those things where, like, I've been saying this for a while now, but white is the worst thing you can do over black, not the best thing. And, like, people have come to this idea that white is the thing that contrasts black best, so it would be the best to use. It's been the thing we've used the least of, though. Really, we've used it as highlight points, and it does have a purpose. Obviously, it has a purpose. It does good things. But for just straight tattooing, it's better used as a complement. And to do that to someone, to black out their hand and then create a new tattoo over it in the same session, is incredibly reckless behavior, and a symptom of this Instagram tattooing thing that we do, where, so for example, and people will think that maybe I'm a proponent of this, but what I do is the exact opposite of that. It's all step by step, and every session I have is in the mindset of, let's have this heal well, right? Let's have this age well and live well. So we do, less strenuous sessions quite often, more often, and don't put the body through a fucking train wreck every time we sit down, because that's how you get scarring. If I were doing things like that every session, I wouldn't be taking ink as well anymore, because my body would be fucked. You can't do that shit to people, and the problem is clients want it. Like, that client was probably fucking thrilled to sit down and go, look at me, I'm the king of men. I got my hand blacked out, I had this piece of shit rotten tomato on my hand, and now I got a fresh new white on black tattoo in one session. It's like, good fucking luck with that. All of that ink is going to mix together very, very poorly. And there's probably people out there that are like, well, artists have put white ink highlights into black, like black and gray pieces. They do it all the time. It's like, it's a very different thing to fully saturate someone's hand black. To begin with, that's tough to do. You don't know what that's going to look like after the fact, because, like, it's very rare that you get a solid one-pass hand blackout. And then to put white ink with a liner in there the same session, when that skin has already been worked aggressively to cover something with black and to try and get it solid, that is as reckless as it gets. And that kind of stuff scares the fuck out of me. And those are the things that give people a bad idea of, blackout for one thing, but tattooing in general, because that person will most likely end up, if they don't end up in the hospital, they'll be very lucky. They could have an infection, but they will have scar tissue for sure. So, and that's not me being a hater. It's just everything that I speak on in this channel is for the betterment of the tattoo. It's not for the like the long-term tattooing is like doing things at a pace the body can handle. And you can get great results fast. You just have to change your approach. You can't just sit down and do these fucking Superman sessions and expect everything to go great every time. And I don't give a fuck that you traveled and so you have to do that. If you want that result, you have to be willing to do multiple sessions. You're not getting a white on black hand tattoo over a fresh blackout that's going to look good. All that ink's going to mix together and it's going to be a piece of shit. It's just the way it is. Like, there's going to be scar tissue and muddy black something. That design won't hold up. That's not how it works. Things need to settle in a little bit. Even when we did my head, we blacked it out and we covered it with red, white, and black in 3 weeks. That was fucking pushing it. And I documented all of that on here. You can see it. But that was pushing it because all that black was still settling in that we were covering. And, you know, we had to do the layering quicker because it's like, well, the top layer black isn't much different from the bottom layer black. So though you can see it, it's not going to be there for long when everything's settling at the same pace. So we had to do the legwork on that quick. And that was 3 weeks. That was the most aggressive I've seen. I've never seen anyone do this before, and maybe it's happened before, but I've never seen anyone do a blackout on someone and a white on black tattoo in the same session. It's just so fucking crazy that people are that impatient that they would, first off, they would think that that would work. And second off, that you would do that to someone. And I'm sure it was asked of the artist, but anyway. Pretty nuts, some of the stuff that I see. And see, that was more extreme to me than the MGK thing that happened this week when I've been fucking sent 90 times, 900 times more likely, and tagged in repeatedly. And people are all assuming that he's doing that so that he can do something similar to me is the context that I'm getting. But not everybody who gets into blackout even wants to do this. A lot of people just like the black, and blackout is its own cool thing, you know? But in that case, I don't assume that he would be doing anything similar to what I'm doing anyway, because the way the work was done was very intentional, and it is the design. There's too much negative of the old tattoos to create anything really cohesive over the black that's there, and it just doesn't appear to be the case, you know? I've already covered my thoughts on that topic, though, so I'm not going to get too crazy into that, but the main reason why I was annoyed to have to react to that is because there are way crazier things going on in the tattoo world than that shit. That's very, very tame in my eye. That's not really all that insane, or it's not like the full head and face blackout that we seen the week prior, and it's not nearly as extreme or insane as this white and black hand tattoo. White on black, fresh blackout hand tattoo that I've seen that nobody seems bothered by. That's the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen. You just fucked that person's hand, basically. For what? A cool picture. It's pretty despicable. Anyway, that's all I got today. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.